The 11th and the 12th. They were clean-shaven and wore the woolen white robes and black capes of monks. The soft-featured face of the 11th betrayed wear. He was a powerful man of noble bearing, but his eyes were soft and kind, showing a preference for the contemplative life that had so long been denied him. His companion, the 12th, though younger, had a degree of maturity that was evident in his respectful silence. The older of the two looked into the traveller's eyes and smiled before bowing his head and speaking. "Now you have but myself and my favoured student. Soon you shall return from dream to the world of your own action and shall cease to consider our actions of the past. There is little for us to say, for you and I were born in the same year, and by the time I came your father had already realized the failure of our line to solve the problem he faced. Thus he had returned in time from our future to create the branch you shall guide. We, after a long period of silence, brought back to our family the teachings of our colleagues who lived so long before. Our family relinquished our right to your father's torch. We allowed it to fall to our cousins. We are indebted to those with whom you have spoken. They earned that torch, and despite the strength within their tradition of that same unthinking fervour that sent the light from us, they carried it, and with it they blossomed. Then, by our learning, we again earned the honour of the torch. But the place to which we brought it recoiled in horror at the advances that had been made in its light. Our world sought by every means to extinguish it. Poison had engulfed our world, and though we sought to demonstrate the compatibility of belief and intellect, of imagination and reason, the gulf was too wide and the damage had been done. Man's identity was by then engulfed in an ingrained power that had fallen so far astray from truth that the learning we provoked resulted only in persecution and denial. However, enough time had passed that intellect would this time win, working like an acid against the rotten roots of long-held belief. The result of persecution was the reaction of thinking men to decry the broken tradition of my family. So, the mantle that reason took was one removed from belief, detached from all that might be associated with our diseased traditions. Reason came to rule, and man placed his hope in a new age. I, and my student beside me, who despite irrefutable brilliance and unvarnished verity was also subjected to the charge of heresy, carried your father's torch. After us, more came to follow in our footsteps, to build on our work, but despite that, and the fact that our family held the name of your father's second son, we were lost to your father's cause." The traveller nodded slowly and then spoke. "As you now know, your family wrongly held that name, and your tradition on the basis of its roots in darkness followed the course it was destined to follow. My father's son did not found your tradition. It was another, in ignorance of his true master, who acted to destroy the very meaning of the gift which had been given to man. When reason returned, man was already broken. My father created your line in unknowing haste. It was too easily broken, and even he whom you call your Redeemer was destroyed. By my father's mistakes he has learned, just as anyone may learn from failure. His task is complex, and the probability of failure increases with complexity. The simple man may flounder when faced with that which is simple to you, and yet so may the most difficult concept that you have faced seem simple to me. As you say, it is my time to act. You and I were born in the same year, soon after the death of the last of the line of your cousins. You and your student, as well as your colleagues, both those present and those absent, acted admirably amidst the basest aspects of man. You were set to hold ground against a force far larger than yourselves, and far more powerful. But on the battlefield of thought and belief, you upheld your place against the greatest concentrations of man's darkest nights." The traveller stopped. The younger man looked up. Now it was he who spoke. "From us, therefore, take this ancient wood. Its heart has remained clean, though the purity of all else has been lost. Its heart is all we can give. It has come to us to speak for all men, and we are left humbly to ask that you act where we could not, that the work we have done will not prove to have been done in vain." The traveller extended his hands to be taken by the two men. They knelt each upon one knee before rising again. The traveller's voice came one last time. "Return to the worlds to which you now belong and the forms you now inhabit. The heart of the wood is now in my care. It shall be for me to act to release man from the chains in which he has so long been confined." The men turned and walked away from the traveller. As they rejoined the ark, the 12 together bowed, faded, and were gone. All that remained was the road and the flat expanse of grass on either side. Torin watched her husband's eyes passing over the grass to the sky and then lower. She watched him as he stood there in silence. Eventually his eyes opened and he turned and looked at her. "He can see me." His hand reached out, and as she took it, the world of the road and wide grassland faded and disappeared, just as the 12 men had before.